It is.
And what is it's still January, so that's the first month of 2020 too.
Yeah. Or we're live on YouTube.
It's going.
All right, we're here.
Yo, what's good, everybody?
Talk.
Welcome to another episode of the BJJ GOONS podcast. I'm your host, Tim, a.k.a. Number One Stunner, a.k.a. Grips of the North Star, a.k.a. Jits Bay, a.k.a. Mr. I Heel Hook White Belts in the Gi because I train for the streets, a.k.a. Mushmaster, a.k.a. King of the BJJ Deathmatch, a.k.a. the Trainwreck God, a.k.a. Trillmonger, a.k.a. Best Bout Machine, a.k.a. Fuck Your Rankings, I Want All the Smoke, a.k.a. the Elker Strangler, a.k.a. the Underground King, a.k.a. Blast Double Poppy, a.k.a. I'm trying to a.k.a. I'm trying to fight to win again. I want to defend my belt, and I want to take on the best, the number one pound for pound. Actually, the fight of the year 2019. For those of you in the know, you know what I'm talking about. And my guest today is Nico Ball.
How am I supposed to follow that up with like 0 AKAs? I have the shortest name ever, Nico Ball. The only nickname I have is actually like my full name, and that's all I got. So.
Your full name is Nico?
Well, no, Nicole, but everybody just calls me Nico Ball. They add in Brazil at least. In Brazil, it's like, okay, so just give them my last name too, you know. But yeah.
Can you explain why your name is No New Nico?
Why my name is No New? Oh, we're gonna start off with drama. That is the
Yes.
worst question to start off
so
with.
before we get to know you as a person, we're gonna figure out your Instagram handle. Why are you No New
Nico?
Know
my story to know why it's No New Nico.
Okay, then all right,
So,
all right. Let's get into your story then. First, may you please introduce yourself? Who are you? What is your name? What are you repping?
Alright, so my name is Nico Ball. I do jiu-jitsu. I am a blue belt. I'm currently training at Team Lloyd Irvin, but I came from starting off in jiu-jitsu in Brazil. So I was living in Virginia. I graduated high school in Virginia. I started training kickboxing and MMA when I went into college, and I got really into that in college. And I was taking a lot of Muay Thai fights, but my jiu-jitsu wasn't really progressing really well. So one day I just up and decided that I was gonna move to Brazil for 6 months and train jiu-jitsu. And I was a big fan of Claudia Galdelia, so I wanted to go train at Novo and Yao, because it was just an amazing team. So I just decided to move to Brazil one day, went down there, and my goal was to just do 3 months training just jiu-jitsu in a gi, so I could get a little better idea of what jiu-jitsu was, and then I was going to transition into doing MMA. But I ended up going down there, falling in love with doing just jiu-jitsu and training in a gi, so I ended up doing just 6 months training nothing but jiu-jitsu, no MMA. In that 6-month period, I got introduced to Fernando Terere. And that's, I guess, how people know me now, really, is because I started training at his gym in Ipanema, and he actually runs a social project in Brazil for the kids from the Cantagalo Favela. So I started working with his social project, and I started getting a lot of donations, raising a lot of money, helped get his story out there in English, because a lot of people knew who he was back in the day, but they didn't realize that he had a gym and that he was still teaching classes, and people could come see him and they could come help support the kids from the favela. So I started working with those kids. That project's called Terere Kids Project. So that's one business that I have. And when I moved back from Brazil to the United States, I actually incorporated that as a 501c3 nonprofit, because it's really hard to get nonprofit status in Brazil. So that means you can't get any of the government benefits. You don't pay any of the teachers down there. They don't get any free space. They don't get free government snack programs. They don't get any of that. But now, I can get donations via Facebook or wherever I do. I can do actual fundraising, and it's all tax deductible, so everything that I was doing in Brazil, getting donations from Facebook or PayPal and all that stuff that I was doing unofficially from Brazil to help the social project, I'm now doing it through the nonprofit here in the U.S. And because that was so successful, I started Favela Jiu-Jitsu, which is kind of like an Instagram that I'm going to turn into a news page this year. And it really kind of just promotes athletes from social projects and the social impact of jiu-jitsu, like what it does in the community, what it does for people, and different social projects, things like that.
That was a lot.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
That was a lot.
That's what it do.
Okay.
No AKs, but a long story.
No, okay. So that was the fastest podcast we've ever had because you just told your entire life story in 5 minutes. But,
There's more details. There's
okay. All right. So
That's the intro.
let's start. That's a hell of an intro. Let's clap it up for it. That's a hell of a fucking intro. That's wow. So you just explained 3 lifetimes in 3 minutes. All right. So let's start. Like, where are you from?
Where am I from? I'm from Pennsylvania, like the suburbs of Philly.
I can't hear. I'm sorry. Move it to the microphone.
My bad. I'm from Pennsylvania, like the suburbs of Philly.
The suburbs of Philly. What was that like?
It was very suburban, and there wasn't a lot going on out there, so didn't do much other than like go to school, play sports. So when I was in 11th grade, I got it in my head to like leave that area, and I actually went on an exchange program in the 11th grade, and I lived in the Dominican Republic. So
You lived in the DR?
Mm-hmm.
What?
Yeah, I lived in the Dominican Republic for like the entire 11th grade year, and then I went back a little bit in college too.
That's interesting. So was that when you first like got into living somewhere abroad and like getting out of your surroundings? That's when you got that bug?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really got a taste for it. And like knowing that there's like other places like the cities, big cities, like things with a lot more people, a lot more things to do. Easier to get around and everything, because in the suburbs, like there's no buses, there's no transportation, you're kind of just stuck.
Was it a culture shock traveling abroad for the first time? Because a lot of people listening, they've never left the United States. We have a lot of United States listeners, so if you're doing jiu-jitsu, sometimes it's the first opportunity people have to travel abroad. Was it a huge culture shock going from the burbs of Pennsylvania to DR? Like, what was the situation over there?
I guess like I kind of embraced it, but it was a little bit crazy. Like I went on an exchange program with like a program called ASF, but it was still a little unorganized to the point where I wasn't sure who my host family was gonna be until like right like the week before I left. And then they had really strange names. Like one was Italian and one was Dominican. And then I arrived in the country at like 11 o'clock at night. The people from the program put me in the car with these people, and they give me different names. And like I didn't speak Spanish at the time either. Like so all I'm understanding really is that their names aren't what was on the paperwork, and they're telling me about like kids and animals and whatnot. So it was like kind of like shocking, but like I just went back to the house. It was like a little mansion actually. They put me to bed because it was really late. I woke up in the morning. I was like kind of scared to leave my room and everything, but like just that whole experience of like meeting a new family, like trying to understand everything, like because we really couldn't communicate. And that's kind of like what it is when you go, like all the people that are in Europeans right now that don't speak any Portuguese, like that's exactly what they're gonna have to experience when they're trying to go to hotels or try to go out to eat. And like you just kind of learn piece by piece. And I just had the advantage of learning when I was 16 as opposed to having to do it when I want to do like my first international competition.
How long did it take you to learn Spanish?
Portuguese.
Well, no, I speak Spanish. Like, and I had to learn Spanish first. So when I lived in the Dominican, it took me maybe like 4 to 6 months. But like I'm good at learning languages. Like I'm a language teacher and a language specialist, and like it kind of just came from it being like natural as a child, and then I studied it in college and everything.
So right now, your main gig is being a language specialist, teaching what languages?
I have taught in like school systems. I've taught Spanish and English. I've tutored in Portuguese, but I've never like I have a degree in Spanish, and like I've studied like ESL, and I have certificates in ESL, but I speak Portuguese fluently. But Portuguese is something that I've never actually had a class in. Like I just kind of learned it down in Brazil doing jiu-jitsu and like needing to speak it. So I tutor in Portuguese, but like I wouldn't all out be like, oh yeah, I'm a full-blown Portuguese teacher. It's like, no, I can teach you to go to Brazil and get around, and I can teach you how to learn Portuguese, because like language acquisition is my specialty.
Sweet. What was your first experience with martial arts? It doesn't have to be your first physical experience, like your first class. When were you first exposed to the world of combat sports or martial arts?
Oh, well, growing up, and my brother and my cousin watching wrestling and WWE. So if we want to go, and that counts as a combat sport. And like, cause we were trying to wrestle, we didn't know it was fake. So when we got down in the living room, that was real wrestling, real takedowns. I know. That's why I said that's why to me I was like, all right, if I'm talking to you, like that would be my first contact.
Who was your favorite wrestler?
My mom went out with the Sandman.
Your mom dated the Sandman?
Yeah.
You met the Sandman?
Yeah.
Like he came to your house?
Yeah.
Was he crazy?
I mean, like, I just remember that he wouldn't tell me that it was fake. He wouldn't admit. Like, he kept with that lie. Like, even trying to, like, he
This is a big deal, folks. Like, so how long did your mom date Sandman for?
I don't even know. And I didn't realize it was a big deal at the time until I told somebody else that was really, really into WWE.
Holy shit. So for those listening at home, everyone knows who Stone Cold Steve Austin is. The Sandman wrestled for ECW, and he was the first guy to walk out to the ring drinking beers and being drunk as fuck. So that's
I didn't even know that's what he was known for.
Yes,
Oh, man.
he's a fucking legend.
I didn't know that.
Crazy. You know the Sandman. This is wow. Holy shit, coming in with heat. So
I
besides,
can make an AKA out of that somehow.
yes, AKA I'm Sandman's illegitimate daughter. Sand Girl. That's your new nickname, Nico. That's your new Instagram handle. Sand Girl. Holy shit. So besides WWE, when did you start getting into martial arts seriously? When did you find out that it was more to life than body slams and kendo sticks to the face?
I guess it was when I graduated high school. So, like, I always did, when I wasn't hustling and to try to get money to, like, pay for the exchange program so I could go abroad and leave the country. Like,
that was your choice?
Yeah. Like,
wow,
my choice to go abroad?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was my choice. And, like, in the 10th grade, I had 3 jobs in the 10th grade to earn money for it. The program cost $7,000, and I earned $3,500 in the 10th grade, and then got sponsorship for the rest of it. And then once I had enough, like, my dad had to put in what I was missing.
Damn, what kind of jobs were you doing to get in the exchange program?
I worked at IQ in the mall, which was a clothes store. I used to be one of those people in the mall that gave surveys, that would try to give surveys, which was like the worst job ever, because people just like see you and they avoid you like you're the plague. And then I also worked.
So.
Yeah. But like you get paid for some of those surveys. Like I get paid for my job, and like you can get $25 sometimes, $50. Who knows? Like.
Well, damn, you just changed my life again. Like
yeah.
I'm definitely gonna take those surveys.
Yeah, and then I also worked at Baja Fresh. So I had 3 jobs.
Damn, that's a throwback.
Yep, and then on top of that, like, I would get lunch money every day. I would get, like, $5 for lunch every day, and then I would just never eat lunch. Like, somebody would give me chocolate milk, and somebody would give me a piece of bread, and then I would just wait till I got home. So that was, like, $15 a week, $60 a month.
Wow. Now, you're saying you got into martial arts towards the end of high school.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, tell me about that.
So it was just really weird. Randomly, I was living. By that time, I had moved down to Woodbridge. Like once I came back from the exchange program, and I turned 18, I moved to Virginia. And
what year is this?
2005.
Okay, so that's when the MMA scene starts bubbling.
Yeah.
Starting getting a little bit more mainstream.
Around then. So in that time, my friend took me to go train up in Falls Church at a place called Maikido, and it was just in a church, and he told me it was kickboxing. So we go in, and all these people are like wrestling around on the ground and whatnot, and then the time for the class starts, and I'm expecting them to like put up the mats and like do kickboxing, but it was actually like an MMA class, and they were doing jiu-jitsu, and they never put the mats up, and that was my first experience with jiu-jitsu, which was like highly awkward. Had no idea what we were doing. Like the whole time, I'm like, can I just kick someone? But
Wow,
I never stopped doing it.
that's crazy. So you just one day said, I want to learn martial arts, and you think you're going to a kickboxing class, and they're doing jiu-jitsu. They had gis on?
No, all no gi. So I never started training in a gi until I moved down to Brazil. That's why I said I was going to do just 3 months in a gi. Like where I trained in Virginia, it was all no gi.
Damn. All right, so you started training in the gi, in no gi. When did you start to get more serious? Like, what made you want to say, "Hey, I want to be not just a hobbyist, but I want to make this my life"? Was it around that same time you started?
I trained for a good 3 years before they would let me compete, and I think it was like
3 years of grappling.
Of kickboxing. I was doing everything. So like I was training like MMA. Like at that program, it was just like on Monday you come in and you do kickboxing. On Tuesday you come in and you do grappling. On Wednesday, like if you're invited, you go over to Hayfield and you go and wrestle. Like so. Like you just did the classes. It wasn't like gyms as you know it. It'd be like, oh, come in and do Muay Thai at 6 and then Jiu-Jitsu at 7. There's like, we're going to fight. You're going to come in at 6 and we'll get you ready to fight kind of thing.
So 3 years.
Yeah, so, and then I just remember the first competition I wanted to do was IKF, which is a big kickboxing, international kickboxing tournament in Florida. And so I asked my coach, and he was kind of just like, yeah, you can fight, but like he still didn't even let me fight that year. I still had to train like a whole nother year, and then I started competing.
This is what kind of rules of kickboxing? We're talking Muay Thai and kickboxing?
Muay Thai. They have Muay Thai international and kickboxing rules. So I compete in international, which is like Muay Thai, just no elbows when I went to IKF for the first time.
So K1 rules kind of, but you can clinch.
A little bit different than K1, yeah.
K1, well, I mean, it's Muay Thai without elbows, basically.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you did. All right. So in 3 years, you started fighting. What was your first fight like?
My first fight, actually, my first tournament. So IKF, here's the thing about IKF. It's like a tournament. So in IKF, I won my first 2 fights the first day, or was it? Maybe it was 1-1. Like, however many fights I had on Saturday, like you win those fights. It's a great feeling. But the problem is you have to go to the finals on Sunday. And then if you lose the finals of a tournament, it doesn't matter if you won 2 fights, you still lost the finals, you lost the belt, you lost everything.
Mm-hmm.
So like I think it was I can't remember if it was my second or my third fight. I want to say it was my second fight, but man, it was against Ticia Torres. It was her last amateur fight.
Damn. What year? So this is like 2008, 2009. If I'm going by your timeline.
Yeah, I can't even remember. That sounds about right, because I would have done 2008, 2009, and 10.
Yikes, Ticia Torres.
Yeah.
You're an OG for real. How'd the fight go?
It went better than all of her other opponents that she plowed through like a little machine. Because even my teammates, like, Ticia's tiny and she's got like
jacked,
really thick arms, so like people are like, oh, like she looked like a dude, like you're fighting her. I was like, yeah, I gotta fight her. So like she plowed through everybody, and like with me she was a little bit different, so like it wasn't like a complete massacre. I definitely lost all 3 rounds, but she was like more counter striking. Like with me, everything was like counter strike. And like it was like my second fight, like she was doing crazy stuff, like working the edge of the ring and like bouncing off of it and coming at me, like stuff that I was just completely inexperienced. I wasn't ready for that, as like being like barely in the ring. Like she had a lot of experience coming up to that fight, but it was a good time, you know.
Was that experience what made you want to go to Brazil, or was there time in between that first experience as a competitor to make a decision to train?
I think going to Brazil was like when I really got into Invicta and seeing the rise of like women's MMA and just like really loving Claudia Gadelha and knowing that I needed jiu-jitsu. So I was like, and like I said, like I'm a language teacher. Like I've always been good at learning languages. So I was like, hey, I'll go learn Portuguese, learn jiu-jitsu, and like chase this girl. And it all worked out.
Wow. So after you fight, you start watching more women's MMA, and you made the decision that You hadn't had an MMA fight before. You just did the kickboxing.
Yeah, I knew I wasn't ready. I knew like my ground game wasn't ready.
All right. So after that first tournament, how long until you went to Brazil?
Let's see. I know this because like I started kickboxing around 2006, which was when I graduated from high school. I graduated college in 2011, and that's when I was definitely like competing hard in Muay Thai. So it was 2014 that I ended up moving to Brazil.
Sheesh. And so when you decided, you already knew where Claudia Gadelha fought, right? And you were like, you kind of admired her work, and you wanted to go to her gym. Yep. Okay. How was that set up? Like, how did you set up the trip to go down
there? So the first thing I did was I saved up money so I would have enough money, and then to stay down there and pay for training for a couple of months, and then I needed like a safe place to stay. So I was also really into social projects and helping people out. I don't even know how I got into that, but the only female person I knew in jiu-jitsu at the time was Kira Gracie, and she had this social project called Capacidades. So I'm not sure how I ever put 2 and 2 together, but I got it in my head to send her a message on Facebook. Like, I really want to come to Brazil. I want to, like, I'm training MMA. I really like jiu-jitsu. I like what you're doing at the social project or something. And I just sent that message to Kira Gracie. And she actually responded. Like, and she said, try Connection Rio. And that's all she said. But Connection Rio was like a hostel for jiu-jitsu athletes in Barra de Tijuca, really close to Gordo Jiu-Jitsu, which is a gym affiliated with the Gracies. So, like, yeah, like that message was what gave me everything that I needed to go to Brazil. Like, so I paid for Connection Rio. Like, I didn't know where I was going to train jiu-jitsu. I knew nothing about jiu-jitsu in a gi. Like, actually, really embarrassing. Like, my first jiu-jitsu class before I moved to Brazil, I went to Renzo Gracie in Pennsylvania in my small hometown, and I wore like a karate uniform. And like,
I did the same thing in my first jiu-jitsu class.
I had no belt.
I got bow and arrow choked my first jiu-jitsu class, right? It felt like I was getting choked by like piano wire, and I was hooked ever since. But you don't know. Back then, when I started, it was like 2006. So back then, it was hard to find a jiu-jitsu gi. I had to go to Chinatown in DC to go find a gi that was sturdy enough after that class. It was a big ass judo gi, but it worked like a charm.
Well, they kind of work, right?
Yeah, they work pretty good. I would say if I could get a bespoke judo gi, that'd be perfect.
Bespoke.
Yes, a custom fit judo gi to do jiu-jitsu, because you're not just gonna like wrap your leg around that lapel. Like, you got to work for it. But anyway, so you go down to Brazil, and you get into social projects. Or before you go, you get into social projects, right?
Kinda. Like, her social project was really far away, so when I went down there, I wasn't involved in anything right away. Like, it took me like a month or two to actually start getting involved in a social project.
Can you explain to me, because I'm kind of ignorant of it, I've heard about them for ages, and all the Goon listeners, what exactly is a social project?
Okay, so anybody that does jiu-jitsu, they're probably paying for jiu-jitsu, and you realize it's like somewhat expensive. Like, on top of the fact that you have to pay for the gi and the uniform, and like uniform prices, gi prices only just started to like drop down to like where you can find one for like $100 or so. So, like, jiu-jitsu wasn't really an accessible sport to people. It's not like basketball where you buy like a $20 basketball and you go out and you can go play with your friends, right? So at the time in Brazil, you know, a lot of people didn't have access to it because they couldn't afford a gi, or they couldn't afford the prices to pay to go to a gym. So social projects offer free classes or free programs, and not just in jiu-jitsu. Like, you have it for dance, for surfing, for a lot of different things in Brazil. But yeah, so when I talk about social projects, I'm talking about the programs that are offering free classes to kids and adults, generally from the favelas or, you know, low-income communities.
Okay. Tell us about your experience in Brazil at Claudia Gadelha's gym. What exactly is the name of their gym? Where in Brazil is it located?
Okay. And this is how we get to my Instagram handle too. So we're getting closer to that.
All right.
So Novo União is in Flamengo. Like, you would never be able to like find Novo União. And I actually have a friend going down to Brazil like this month, and she's like, "Oh, do you think it would be a good idea to drop in there?" And I had to tell her, like, honestly, like, nah, it's like it's really hard because it's located inside of just like a normal gym for like weightlifting. It's called Academia Upper. So there's no way to know that it's inside of there. So it's up on the 3rd floor. So you have to have a gym membership to get in, which makes it really hard to drop in on classes or get in there if you don't have a membership or if you don't speak Portuguese. So it's in a really nice area right by the metro. You go up, it's on the 3rd floor, and it's not even that big of a gym. It's just really an open mat. One open mat, one floor, one open mat. They have like one mat side on the right, and then they have a ring in the center, and then they have another mat side on the left, and like that's all it is. That's like they have a huge MMA team, and they also have like a ton of classes like all throughout the day. So they'll have like 5-6 different jiu-jitsu classes. They'll have like 5 Muay Thai classes like for amateurs and everything, but then they also have the pro training that's on top of that.
Now this is Andre Pedneris, Novo União.
Andre Pedneris.
Jose Aldo.
Hernan Berao. While I was there, Junior Dos Santos was training there.
So this is like the real deal. Legendary squad.
Yeah.
And how did you make the connection to get that? You asked Kira Gracie, but like how did you...
So I was like blessed. I was really blessed. So so I asked Kira Gracie. I went down and I was staying at Connection Rio, and Kira actually had a seminar within like the first month I was in Brazil. So I got to meet Kira, and that's also like the first time I met like Eduardo Hockey, which is like a really good, not purple belt, brown belt now, who I've helped like bring to the States and everything. But then Connection Rio used to do academy visits. So like I said, it's really hard to get into Novo União. Like the second month I was there, like Connection Rio took us to Novo União. Like, so that's how I kind of initially got in, and like Claudia was there that day too. And so I didn't talk to her that day. I was just kind of like staring at her by the bathroom, like, oh my God, like this is why I came to Brazil, and I get to meet her. And she was actually going out with an American at the time that knew the manager of Connection Rio. Like they were friends, and so at some point Claudia actually came over to Connection Rio to the house for like a barbecue or something that we were having, and I think that's how I initially met her and had that contact. And then when I was ready to go train at Novo União, like through her boyfriend and my friend and like all that connection, she was the one that actually like got me into the pro training at Novo União. Like, so technically I was paying to get into the gym like any normal amateur fighter, like going to the amateur classes, but like because of Claudia I was able to get into like the pro MMA classes, so I was just training with the pro classes. But then eventually like I ran out of money, like all fighters. So like I had to go up to Day Day, like so I couldn't pay the gym anymore. That was the problem. So like I had to go up to Day Day.
Day Day is Andre
Pedernales, and I had to be like, I don't like look like like.
You was broke. You had no ends. You was ass out.
No, this was, first I think we had asked about like me actually being on like the team, and like his first answer was like, nah. He's like, I got like 300 people out here, you're not even a pro. And Claudia was just like, just keep coming. There's 300 people here. He's not gonna care, I guess. Like. And
they have a project at Novo União.
No, they don't. No, they don't. So like, so you either like I was paying to go to the classes, and that's how I was getting into pro training. So that at one point I was like, can I just like be on the team? And he was like, no. And then after that, I ran out of money. So Claudia was just like, keep coming. Like you're like. You train with me and everything. Like she just.
So you paid until you couldn't
pay, and then I had to go back to Day Day and be like, look, like I'm out of
zero.
Money. Yeah.
Did you have a gig down there?
I was hustling at time. Like I had all these little hustles, but like to be hustling to pay rent and then to pay like Novo União was expensive. But at that point, he gave it the okay. He let me in, and I didn't have to pay anymore. And that was actually the last time I've ever paid to train martial arts.
Nice. High five. Shout out to all the martial arts freeloaders out there.
I have worked my ass off to get into gyms, but like, I had to work. Eyes on my soul, like, and like every Sunday for the rest of my life. But
what was the training environment like? I mean, I have to think it was a shell shock moment for you, going from you were in Virginia back in the day, kind of like the infancy. We're still sort of in the infancy of MMA, still in a way, becoming a big sport. But the difference had to been intense, going from a school in Virginia to one of the greatest martial arts gyms in history. What was it like?
It was crazy. It's like very easy to get overwhelmed. Like, and especially because I'm like, I weigh like 125 pounds. So, like, I am always the smallest person on every team. Like, so, and people would be like, well, you need to go lift weights, like, or go do steroids because we're going to hurt you. Like, we're legit just going to hurt you without trying.
Like,
so,
putting
like,
on weight is easy, right?
Like, it's like, all right. So one thing about training was like, no matter what I did, like I always had to lift weights because I was so small, and like I did get hurt. Like Claudia hit me with like a blast double one time, and I separated my shoulder, or like different things. Like it was very easy to hurt somebody or just crush them down. So like you do a ton of training. Like the one thing was before I went into MMA training, I was still training jiu-jitsu 4 times a day. Like I would train jiu-jitsu in the morning. I would train two times at night, and then I would lift weights. So like I would train jiu-jitsu 3 times a day, and I would lift weights. So like before going into training at Novo and Yao, I was training 4 times a day. I was training full time.
You would train at the same gym?
I would train, well, when I first trained, I was training at Gordo. So like I would do Gordo's morning class and then 2 evening classes and lift weights, and then I eventually transitioned to Terere. So then I was training at Terere's and still lifting weights.
And then you go to Novo and Yao at night? Or I'm confused.
Okay, so yep. Okay, here let me clarify this. So this is where we get to the no Nico. So like I was training at Terere's Jiu-Jitsu, and I was working with Terere.
In Flamenco?
Terere is in Ipanema, and I lived in the favela with Terere. So after 3 months, so after I paid for 3 months, right? So before my money left, like I was out of money to pay for Novo and Yao, I was out of money to pay for Connection Rio. So before I moved to Brazil, I had only paid for 3 months at Connection Rio and 3 months at Gordo's training. So I had 3 months clear.
And this is all in the general area. I don't
Yes. Gordo's and Connection Rio, like Gordo's, like I could wake up at like 7:55 at Connection Rio and be in class at Gordo's at 8.
Okay, and now how far is that from how's that far from Terere's? And how far is Terere's from Novo and Yao?
Okay, so
you get an idea of like your daily commute and whatnot.
Okay, so Connection Rio is in Barra de Tijuca, which is where like the Olympic Village area was.
Oh, that's kind of fancy.
Yeah, that's exactly. It was like safe and it was fancy. It was the suburbs. Because when I first went to Rio, I was gonna be like, I'm gonna stay out of the favela. I'm gonna stay out of trouble. I'm not gonna do any of that. So Baja is like the new money rich area in Rio. It's really nice. You kind of need a car to be down there. And it used to be really hard to get there before they built the metro for the Olympics. Now, like to get from Baja to Ipanema, it could be like 10 minutes. Without the metro, you had to either go over a mountain or around a mountain in like the famous like 557 bus, which is like giving many a gringo a heart attack because it goes up this mountain in a very scary fashion, and that could take between 45 minutes to 3 hours depending on how traffic in Rio is.
And Rio traffic, for those who don't know, is the shits. It's terrible.
Yeah.
So continue.
So, like, after 3 months, like, I moved into the favela. So I was living originally with, like, Terere's secretary.
How did you meet Terere through Gordo's?
I was at Connection Rio, and there was this guy called Andrew Morris, who's also the one that let me know that the Sandman is the shit. His reaction was quite the same as yours. He came down, like, shortly after me to Connection Rio to stay there for 6 months just to train with Terere. But like,
say that again, so we're clear. Say that again.
So Andrew Morris came from England to live in Connection Rio for 6 months just to train with Terere. And let me say, he was actually in a relationship and like was faithful in that relationship like the whole 6 months. Like that is like the strongest relationship I've ever seen in my life. I would give him props for that.
And Brazil. And Rio.
Yep.
So you're at Connection Rio. You're training Connection Rio. I guess is the same as Gordo's, or it's like the hookup.
It's kind of because they're literally like right next to each other. So you know, like they try to kind of funnel each other in, but like people can come to Connection Rio and want to train anywhere. Like
okay, and you're training at Gordo's, and then your friend says, I guess he says one day like, "Hey, you want to go to Terere's?"
he had to say multiple times because, like, to be honest, I had no idea who Terere was. So I didn't even understand him because he was from Manchester. He was like, Terere. I was like, what? Who? And
hey, I'm going to train with Terere.
I actually refused to go several times because I was like, I'm a white belt. I don't know anything. Gordo's is right there. I can learn jiu-jitsu from anybody. I went to Terere's one time and I signed up, like, and I never went back to
and
Gordo's.
You had to pay?
Yeah, I paid there a little bit, but that was before the whole Novo Yao running out of money. Like, cause then I started working at Terere's.
All right.
So yeah,
so you're training at Gordo's, and you're paying for you paid for Connection Rio. Mm-hmm. You start going to Terere's, and you have to pay for Terere's, and you were training at Novo Yao around the same time.
No. I still wasn't training at Novo Yao at the time. This is when, like, in my first 3 months, and I didn't go back to MMA for like 6 months. It took me like 6 months to get back.
All right, so you're training at Terere's, Gordo's. You're staying at the hostel at Connection Rio. When do you decide to make the move into the Favelas, and when did you decide to train with Novo Yao?
So after 3 months, I went from Connection Rio to the Favela, and then I had kind of already left Gordo's. Like after like 2 months, I had left Gordo's to go to Terere's before my first competition. Like I tried out one class. He's an amazing teacher. He is everything that they say he is, and I was like, oh, this is it. Like, he just made me think about my jiu-jitsu in like 30 seconds. I know exactly what it was. I was trying to pass somebody's guard, and he's just like, hey, like, why are you standing in front of them? I was like, what you mean, like? And it's just like that idea, because everybody's like, oh, do an armbar. You can do an armbar. But, like, if you don't know how to set up an armbar, get to an armbar, or, like, you know, it doesn't help. But, like, he was just like, you need to, like, be on the side of the person. So he just, his way of thinking about jiu-jitsu, like, really changed.
Man, so he's like a savant.
Mm-hmm.
He just made it. I can envision learning from him. Like, he just made it seem so freaking simple.
Yep.
You know, it's like that too. Master Lloyd. I don't know, Shorty. Why don't you just do this? I'm like, I've been doing this for like 15 years, and like, you just totally like made everything easier in like 5 seconds. Now you're training in the favelas. I guess I'm assuming that the reason why you decided to move to favelas is to stay closer to the gym, and it's probably cheaper.
Oh, astronomically cheaper. And then for the longest time, like, because Terere's secretary was Peruvian, and I would come home to like home cooked meals after training. That was a beautiful thing.
You stayed with the secretary.
Yeah, the secretary, her husband, and her 3 kids. I slept on the floor with the 18-year-old, and he was a beat maker, and we lived above a bar. It was the loudest experience of my life.
Man, what is it like living in the favelas? Like, what pushed you to the decision? Tell me about like the decision to move to the favelas, and what is it like living in the favelas?
I mean, the decision was like simple. It's like I was there to train, and the easiest way to do it was to be like right by the gym, like because Terere's gym isn't in the favela; it's in Ipanema, but it's like right at the base of the favela. So if you like walk up to the top and then take the elevator down, you're right there. Or it's just like a quick walk. Like, I was barely paying any money, and Ipanema is a lot nicer than Baja. Like, the favela, once you get down from the favela, it's 3 blocks away from either Copacabana or Ipanema Beach, depending on what side you go down. And I like... The Peruvian family was, like, kind of scared of the favela. Like, there's several ways to get up into the favela, and, like, some of them you have to, like, pass by, like, armed police or armed drug dealers. There's a lot of both of them. Just kind of standing around. Not necessarily a threat all the time, but they are present, so they didn't like to walk by them. And they kind of like stayed away from things, but like I just chose the path that was easier, so and just I didn't mind walking by them, and like as a result everybody like knew who I was. Like they all knew that I was there for jiu-jitsu, so it wasn't much of a problem.
You didn't ever, so when you lived there you didn't feel unsafe after a while? Like
never.
Damn, so it's like a close-knit community, kind of.
It's a very close-knit community. Like, and even, like, when Terere loves to bring people up to his house and through the favela, and they have hostels there, so sometimes you'd have people just kind of like staying there, and we'd always like joke and like say just like, oh, put on like an FT shirt, like a Fernando Terere shirt. It's like we used to call them bulletproof shirts, bulletproof t-shirts. It's like because both like the cops and the drug dealers, like if you don't speak Portuguese but they see you in the shirt, like they know why you're there.
And they're not gonna fuck with you.
Yeah, like, and like people like really, like as an outsider, like the cops are gonna mess with you because they want to know if you're buying drugs, and the drug dealers are generally gonna mess with you like because they want to know what time it is, or because they want to know why you're in the neighborhood. And if you don't understand them, like when like a 14-year-old with a gun is asking you what time it is, like it can be scary. But like if you're just like, oh,
They don't know what time it is.
sometimes, because like they're like the lookout just kind of stands there for a really long time. So like sometimes they'll ask for water, what time it is. They'll ask for a cigarette. They'll just ask you normal stuff. But if you don't understand them and it's an armed man, it can be kind of scary. Like,
Damn, so it's actually not that bad if you understand the language and you know the people and like they know why you're there.
the dangerous part is like, you know, at any time it's like, okay, be like, okay, you can be having a conversation with a drug dealer, but if there's a police operation, like, and you're caught in crossfire, like that's dangerous.
So,
like
like-
crossfire is always dangerous.
So is that how a lot of the citizens in the favelas get hurt? Is like the drug war? I'm assuming.
Yeah, but even that, like, that is how, like, you can have, like, the most common thing is police on gang violence, because the other thing would be, like, gang on gang violence, and that's, like, really, like, every neighborhood has a gang. Like, I know what my gang, like, my neighborhood gang is, and, like, all the other ones, so, like, and unless, like, one gang is trying to take over another gang, and it's kind of like organized crime, like, you know, it doesn't happen very often. Like, and you kind of know, like, there's a point where your neighborhood's at risk. Like, we're kind of at war, and there's a risk that, like, this gang is going to try to take it.
Did you ever live through that? Like someone tried to come
Kind
to you?
of, but, like, I also have a really small, like, I lived in a really small favela. There's not, like, much to take in Cantagalo. Like, Josinho on the other side, like, Josinho, which is at, like, the end of Ipanema Beach, is, like, really famous picture, like, that they produce like a lot of coke. So like they have like 3 years ago there was a huge gang war there. Like it was right after I left Rio too, like because I had gone down for a summer, and like right after I left, like the person that ran the favela, the favela was so big they were actually able to there used to be like two gangs would run the top of the favela. One gang would run the top of the favela, one gang would run the bottom of the favela. And they weren't working together, but like this one guy like unified the favelas, and then he ended up going to jail. So he's been in jail for a while, and then I guess there was like an internal takeover. Somebody wanted to take it away from him, and they like shot at his girlfriend. Like they shot his girlfriend like 2 days after I left Rio, and then that sparked like kind of a gang war, and the police actually didn't. I guess I shouldn't go out and be like, oh, the police didn't do anything. But from what I saw, like, the police kind of just waited for, like, the gangs to battle it out and kind of contain the area. And, yeah, it happened for for, like, 2 weeks. It was going crazy. And you can read there's this book called Nemesis, and it talks about this guy before this whole war, like, when he first came to power. But, like, and it was funny because I was reading that book at the time, too, and then all that sparked. I was like, oh, wow.
So did you know Nemesis? No, you didn't know that. All right. So you live in the favelas. You're training with arguably the greatest grappler of all time, Fernando Terere. And then you go to Novo União. Let's get to the Novo Nico.
Yep, this is where we get in the problem. So, all right. So eventually, I had to go back to MMA. But like you said, I was training with the best grappler of all times. So I went back to Novo União. When I started training at Novo União, I would just train stand-up, like in MMA. Like I didn't do any like jiu-jitsu and gi at Novo União, because I was still training jiu-jitsu at Terere. It's just not as much. So I was still working at Terere's. Like, because at this time, like, you know, he had the social project, and like Terere would go to like Europe or go give seminars. You wouldn't be around, and they had like organizational problems when he wasn't around to like run stuff. And, like we wouldn't have money for like snack programs, so like I would get donations. Like I would like, hey, Terere's got like this amazing program in Brazil, and I'd ask for money on Facebook. Like, and so like I was working in that capacity there. But then I was training at I started training at Novo União. And then I went and I competed in jiu-jitsu with an FT patch on my back. And this guy called. Should we call people out? Like,
come on, call
his
him out.
name
I
is
want you to get close to the mic.
His name is Espantalio, and I'll only say this because he works at IBJJF competitions all over the time, and like we see each other, and like he knows like I'm bitter about this, like, so like he would call everybody like Creonche, like they have this big Creonche culture in Novo União too, right? So like he saw that patch on my back and went back to the people at Novo União and told them. Like, and then it became like an issue. It was like, oh, why are you competing with an FT patch and da 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 da. So like they made me like take the patches off and like affiliate myself with Novo União.
Did Terere care?
Terere understood. Terere didn't want me to do MMA because he said I was gonna get hurt, but he was like, you know, I understand if that's what you want to do. Yeah, I guess, yeah, maybe. Like, and at the time, like, again, I didn't know who he was, like, so I hadn't fully understood that he had, like, all this experience in MMA either, like, and so.
Wait, he had MMA experience?
He has, like, 6 MMA fights.
God damn.
Yeah. Yes,
I didn't know that.
So he was always like, he understood. He was like, I know that like this is why you came, but like you really shouldn't. Like I don't want you to get hurt. So he was very understanding about it. But yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. How long did you train at Novo União after that static? Like, did you fight under them at all?
Okay, so.
And what's up with the No New Nico?
I'm getting to it. Okay, so how long did I train at Novo União? For about 2 years. Did I fight under them? Yeah, kind of. Yes, it was a bad fight. But the reason that I eventually ended up leaving Novo União because, like I said, like Dede said, there's like a list of like 300 people that want to be on the team. Jose Aldo was there, Junior Sagano was there, like Claudia was there. Claudia was there, like about to have her UFC debut, and she was graduating college. And at that time, she got me a fight on Team Noguera. Like, she got me an MMA fight. She did, like, all the matchmaking, and then she actually paid me for that fight, too, because she's like, you hustle too hard to be, like, taking a fight that you ain't getting paid for. So, shout out to her, because, like, she really did throw down for that fight. Lost the fight. Like, I made weight for the fight. The girl didn't. She came in over. We still fought, like, and it didn't go well. But, like, that was the only fight I had at Novo União. And the problem with training there, and the team was like, there's just so many people, there's so many classes, and like without having your head coach or somebody to help you out, like to tell you what to do and where to train, like, because like I could go to like MMA sparring, but then like MMA sparring would also be like you got the whole team there on Tuesday and Thursday, and like sometimes it would be like prioritized of who could go, because it's like the fish tank and you got to get in your rounds, and then you also need people that are your size, right? So
that's super difficult for you being that you're 125.
So sometimes like I have to go to like the amateur MMA sparring, which happened to be at like, I don't know, like 9 o'clock on, like 9 or 10 on a Wednesday night, and then I'd still have to get up and go to like professional wrestling training at like 9 o'clock in the morning. Like, so it's really hard to like.
That's a long ass commute from the Favela to there, right?
There's a metro, so I'd still have to hop on the metro and pay the metro like 2 times a day to train 2 times a day. But like it's a little bit easier, and then you gotta walk down 28 flights of stairs back up to the favela and stay in a room that has no like air conditioning and stuff. But you know, so that was the issue with Novo União. Like, there was just too many people. There was like too many jiu-jitsu teachers. Like not a lot of people to like really give any fucks about you, honestly. Like Claudia gave fucks, but like I said, she was taking care of me when she was graduating college and preparing for her UFC debut.
She's
like
a ride
that
or
wasn't
die.
her
That's
place,
a real
you know.
homie.
Like Poliana Botella too, and then like Claudia's kickboxing coach Rafael. Like they always took care of me. But another dude is like the head BJJ coach at Novo União. His name is Andre Marola, and he's like he's a big dude, and he's always at all the IBJJF competitions. Like, he always used to take care of me, because he would do, like, the strength and conditioning for the fighters, too. Like, when we'd go in and work out, and, like, he'd always, like, be like, oh, because they have to, like, ask you, like, you got any fights on your next competition, and let you know what's going on and, like, when to work out. So he took care of me for a while. But eventually, I ended up meeting Jessica Andrade and her coach at our boxing gym. And there was actually a really good boxing gym in the favela where I lived. So Claudia would train there. A lot of people from Novo União would train there. And Jessica Andrade came down, and I met them there. And so her coach really focuses on women fighters. He's got a big female team. So he invited me down to they live in Curitiba, the city where Anderson Silva is from.
That's shoot box.
Yeah, down there, shoot box.
Is that close to the favela that you live?
No, that was a completely different city. So this is where we get to the no Nico. So because of that, I went down to check out PRVT and train down there for a little bit, and I decided to switch teams because I wanted to fight, and nobody was gonna do any matchmaking for me at Novo União. So I made the choice to leave Novo União. So at the time, my Instagram name was New Union Nico. New Union Nico, because Novo União is Portuguese for New Union.
Mm-hmm.
So at the time, my Instagram was New Union Nico. So and then I had switched from Gordo Jiu-Jitsu to FT Jiu-Jitsu to Novo União. So when I left to go to PRVT, I switched back to FT Jiu-Jitsu, and then I just switched my Instagram to No New Nico, because never for nothing. I fight under TLI, but I always rep FT, and I will never take an FT patch off of my gi. So it's kind of no new people. That's, I'm always gonna hold true to what's mine.
That's what's up. All right, then what happened after that?
So before moving to Curitiba, Terere was right. So right before I left Novo União, I was training and got kicked in the eye. So
at Novo União or
at Novo União.
Okay.
So at Novo União, I got kicked in the eye, so I had to go to the hospital and I had to get stitches in my eye.
In your eyeball?
In my eyelid. So stitches in my eyelid.
Okay.
And then I recovered, moved down to Curitiba, was training with PRVT, had a boxing fight, was about to have my professional MMA debut a couple weeks later, and then after that I was going to go back to Rio to visit because I was still working with Terere at the time. But my eye was bugging me again. So I ended up, after my boxing match and after training one day, going to the hospital again, and it turned out I had a detached retina.
What is that like for someone that's I never had anything like that?
It just felt like my eye was really irritated. It was partially detached, so I wasn't completely blind, but it was fuzzy on the side of my eye. It felt like my eye was swollen. That's why I went to the doctor. I kind of went because I thought it was getting swollen again, and I just needed some anti-inflammatory drops. And that's what I went for. Was for the medicine, and they're no. Actually, the first thing they say when you're talking about going to another country, they're well, why do you speak so weird? And I was because I'm American. What are you talking? How? I'm here, almost going blind at the hospital. You're going on my accent. I'm trying to explain stuff, and then they're you got kicked in the eye. You do MMA. I'm my eye though. I'm trying to understand because they're all grave and blind and this and that. But it doesn't hurt a lot. It was just it was just really fuzzy on one side and felt uncomfortable.
Shit. All right. So your eye's fucked up. You're in Brazil. You're in Curitiba, right? Mm-hmm. All right. How did so what did you end up doing?
I had to have surgery.
What is it like having surgery in a foreign country? I feel that's terrifying. Is Brazil good with healthcare?
Oh, the blessing thing was I said, so I got kicked in Rio, and then I moved to Curitiba. And Rio at the time was preparing for the World Cup. They were going bankrupt. Women were having babies on the sidewalk. They had no money. And Curitiba is one of the wealthiest states in Rio, the way it's put together. So it was a blessing that I probably had my first surgery down there. So it was kind of crappy, because in certain ways it was good. I didn't pay for anything. I paid maybe for the whole process $35 to get eye drops. The bad thing was I was also on my own. Nobody from the team was really that supportive or there because I was also living in a fighter house, so
it's basically a glorified trap house but for fighters. From my experience,
and it's a glorified trap house for fighters, and by fighters you're a commodity. you know, if you're not making money or at least like being an uki or like serving a purpose, like you serve no purpose, like literally. Like, so it's like I just moved down there and it's like, and then I get injured. So like that was probably like the worst part of the whole experience. Was like being like, oh crap, like new to the team, got an injury, like, and I'm occupying space in like the fight house. But like other than that, it was like just the process of having like to take the bus like in public transportation into the city because we were in the suburbs at the time. Like it was a really nicer area, so I'd have to like take buses into the city to go to like my eye appointments. It was actually like some pothead, like if we want to tell the real truth, it was like a drug dealer from the park that took me to my eye surgery and was like the only one that he got up at like 5 o'clock in the morning, like because I needed somebody the day of the surgery. All the other like procedures I could go by myself and like take the bus back, and like if my like eye was diluted, I would just like wait in a park until I could see again and like take the bus back. But the day of the surgery, like I needed somebody to be there, and it was a drug dealer from a park.
This random drug dealer you knew?
I mean, like, he was random the first time I met him. Like, I had seen him a couple times. Like, in Curitiba, also, like, there was nothing to do. Like, so, like, I would either be at training or be at my house or, like, go to the park and write, because I used to write a lot. So, like, I'd see him at the park, like, just smoking, or they'd bring, like, a wire, and they'd just be out there. So, start hanging out with him.
And how did you make money? You're still working for Ted a day down there?
Oh, no. Like, I would teach English. I would, like, charge people. Like, I would charge gringos, like, from Connection Rio, like $20 to register with them for tournaments. I would do favela tours. Gringos needed a lot of stuff. Like if you needed to mail stuff and didn't know how to, like $10. I'll take you to the post office. I tried to teach English primarily to like fighters, but would also teach for schools and stuff. But when I left to Curitiba, like I quit all that and I was also writing. I was like, how did I survive? I was writing articles too. Like, I was writing for Fightland. I was writing for Jiu-Jitsu. Like,
Fightland was legit.
Yeah, Fightland helped out a lot. Fightland used to like sponsor the project where we were trying to do like English programs and get English tutors, which like we're finally doing now. Like it's been years and years of me trying to get people to study English and like failed efforts, but now they're actually picking it up.
Sweet. After the surgery, after you're healed up, what did you do?
After I was healed up, how long did I? Okay, so you get like PRVT had its interesting things that are for Patreon episode only.
Yeah.
Like shortly after the surgery, I ended up moving back to Rio. Like I remember I couldn't get back to the surgery, like, because I was also to make money. I was like, I would translate for Terere. That was one of the most profitable things I would do, like translate his private lessons. Like he had like if he was teaching a private for like 200, it was 250 to get translated, and that 50 was mine, or like
Nice. Nice.
You know, it was like because Terere can speak a little bit of English, but like when you want to go into theory, like you need somebody that can translate Terere, and he'll really lay it down for you. But, wait, where were we going with that? So, I was trying to go right after my surgery. I think, like, the day or the next day, I was going to fly back to Rio and go, like, translate somebody's private lessons. It was 3 private lessons, and it was CJ Murdoch from, like, South Carolina. And they're like, no, like, you can't go in an airplane. And it was, like, because of the elevation and what was in my eye. So I was like, well, can I take a bus back? And they're like, no, because you have to go over mountains. So I was literally trapped. Yeah, I was trapped in Curitiba for like 3 or 4 months before I could even go back to Rio to visit or do any work. But by the time I was actually cleared to train, because like I think I had to wait like 6 months before I could actually train. Like PRVT like started kind of dissolving and leaving Curitiba, like trying to go to like Rio das Austrias or someplace like in the state of Rio but not Rio, and I was like, peace, I'm going home. Like I'm going back to the favela.
So you back in the favela. How long did you stay in the favela until you came back home?
I came back home in 2016 because 2 friends were getting married.
Damn. So down that time, you get your eye fixed. You're training with Terere. You're competing in Brazil. What's that like competing in Brazil for those who don't know? It's short.
It's crazy. Like, really porrada every day.
Shit. I guess we'll leave that at that. Pohada. It's real out there for those who don't know. So you come back home, your friends are getting married, you're back in the civilian life. Like, you're not in the shit. Is this when Favela Jiu-Jitsu starts?
I was doing Favela Jiu-Jitsu like on a minor level before that. Like,
and what is Favela Jiu-Jitsu?
I guess I started writing about. No, I guess it got big when I did get back, because it would be like after the first year of Europeans. Favela Jiu-Jitsu, I guess, started off as a series of articles and not really an Instagram. So it was articles. I started really with Gabriela Pasania, who is just like won everything. She's literally the queen of jiu-jitsu this weekend, won Europeans, beat my teammate.
Yada.
That was hard. But like when she was a blue belt, like nobody knew who she was. And I was working at Europeans, and I guess if I came back in 2016, this must have been like the 2017, 18? No, this must have been like maybe the 2016 Europeans.
I guess, because they were brown belts last year.
Because I've been to Europeans 3 times. This was like my first time. But like, it was Gabby's coach that came like running after me. It was like, oh yeah, you work for Flow Grappling. Like, Gabby, she's amazing. She's done this and this and this and this, and nobody wants to hear about it. And he was right. Nobody wanted to hear about it. Like, I pitched the article to Jiu-Jitsu and like a couple other places, and they were like, this girl from the favela. And they weren't really interested. So I just kind of started putting that kind of material out on my own. Like some other articles, like Favela Jiu-Jitsu articles, were picked up. That's what I started calling articles that I wrote for Fightland. I wrote some articles for Flow Grappling, and the focus was just mainly like the athletes from social projects or athletes from Brazil that like were killing it but not getting attention because like they can't get passwords to kill it in America or come to Worlds, or they don't speak the language, so they're not getting out there on mainstream media.
There's a lot of really good guys in Brazil, folks, that may never see the United States, but are straight up killers. Probably generational talents that unfortunately will never have the opportunity just because of our immigration law, just the way it works, where the money is. I mean, you've probably seen it, Nico, the guys that they came here to fuck shit up.
But yeah, it can be really hard for them. Like, especially like when you come from the favela, like it's hard to get to normal competitions in Brazil. It's hard to get to international competitions, and even if you can afford to get a visa, like so many of them get denied 2-3 times because like they don't have anything to prove that they're coming back. So it's really hard, like when you're coming from the favela, to justify. Like the first year that we sent Moicano, like the social project paid for his visa and his chaperone's visa the first time, and they both got denied. And then somehow we got somebody just to pay for Moicano's visa a second time, but we couldn't afford to pay for his chaperone's visa the second time. But he managed to find somebody. Like, he was going out there asking some kind of gringos that had come to the project. He got it paid for a second time. Moicano got his, but his chaperone still got denied. So we had like this kid that needed to go to the U.S. and we had nobody to take him. Like, so frankly, I was in Brazil as an illegal alien. Like, your visa will only let you stay for 6 months, and I stayed for 3 years. So after that 6 months, like, I couldn't leave the country and get back in. Like, I could have surgery, but I couldn't leave the country.
Damn, their healthcare system's better than ours.
It is. And like, I go back, like, and I just got healthcare in the U.S. So before I got healthcare, like this year, like every year before, like when I would go back to Brazil, I go back to the hospital to get my eye check, and they know exactly what, like, all my records are there in the hospital, like my mom's name, my dad's name, because they always ask those things. But yeah.
All right. So Favela Jiu-Jitsu started. You just putting some paint where it ain't. You know, you were showing love to all the kids from the favelas. And what is it now? How did it grow? What was your goal?
I mean, my goal was just to like kind of give a voice to the voiceless, and like I'm really timid and I don't like talking to people, but sometimes people are just they like to come up and they have stories to tell and they're very passionate about it, and some of them are just amazing stories. Like Alan Finfo, for example, he is from the Cantagalo favela. He knows Terere. He has that amazing story of like giving Terere his black belt back at Europeans, because Terere had, when he had his drug addiction, had sold his black belt for crack. It was like the only thing he had, and so like there's an amazing interview on, some of it still on the Favela Jiu-Jitsu YouTube channel, because I translated it from Kabache. I think part 1 they tried to like copyright it and take it down, and I think I tried to put it back up because it's an amazing story. But so Alan Finfo, he's kind of known for that amazing story, but like he's also like the last surviving male member of his family. Like both his brothers and his fathers are victim to like gun violence, gang or police related, one of them dying on his birthday, and now he's like in Sweden raising like a family. He's got beautiful children, like he's helping out a lot of people, you know, and it's just amazing that he's done that through jiu-jitsu. It's like not about who's the best, who's number one, but like jiu-jitsu has saved a lot of people's lives. It's given a lot of people a career, you know, and that's kind of what I wanted to like put on through Favela Jiu-Jitsu.
Nice. So basically, favela jiu-jitsu is a way for you to give a voice to all the kids in the favela trying to make it in jiu-jitsu, and trying to make it here and make a life for themselves. What are you doing right now? Like, what kind of projects are you working on at the moment?
Right now I'm actually working on 2 different things. One is I've been really big on Instagram and YouTube, and now I'm kind of going to revamp our actual website, thefavelajujitsu.com, so that it is more of like a bilingual news site, and that we have more articles. I get a lot of questions, not just about like the athletes and who's competing and stuff like that, but for people trying to go to Rio, like where to train, where they shouldn't train, like things that they need to know, some basic Portuguese. So just like information like that. Same way like for people from Brazil coming to the US, so to have it be like a legit site, because I already do like the highlights and everything on YouTube, but I also want to make like the favelas more known in the U.S. So this year we're going to be doing a lot more charity events, like different charity seminars and open mat events, like in different cities, where like we'll have like, you know, like music, people from the favelas, if you can find them, like different athletes that are here, like some pictures and displays and just some information about what social projects are, because you know, just the idea, it's not exclusive to the favelas or to Rio. Like in the U.S., it's a much needed concept. Like a lot, like, because I'm also like, I work in a charter school here, and I've worked in like I have a master's degree in educational psychology. So like my specialty is kind of like curriculum development, language acquisition, and like I like alternative education programs. So like, you know, a lot of kids are lacking, you know, all those things that you got, like music and sports and all that stuff that were in schools, all that funding's being
We
cut.
drained it away in the United States. Like, we just totally took it away.
Yeah, so like all that funding's being cut, and you know, the community can put that all right back in. You know, I have a couple friends in DC that have been working at a place called Woodland, and they have Woodland Jiu-Jitsu in Southeast DC, where they offer free jiu-jitsu classes to the community.
And Southeast DC is one of the realest neighborhoods in the country.
Yeah, that's favela, you know, like that's definitely
American
favela. And you know, like they go down there, and I admire them for their consistency, because you know, people are always telling me that they admire me, that I do a lot, but I can be all over the place competing all the time. But like these boys, they do an open mat every Friday in the city. They'll go and compete like in South Carolina, which is like 6 hours away, on Saturday, and they'll be back on Sunday to give that free class in DC. And you don't see a lot of people doing that, but it's definitely a possibility to like replicate and be able to give back to, you know, communities in the U.S. I know there's Project Grapple in Miami that do things like that. There is another one starting up in Baltimore that the name is slipping me right now, but you know, just the idea of doing more programs for the community is something that I would like to see grow, so I want to promote that with Favela Jiu-Jitsu.
So you're trying to financially and put the name out for social projects, not just in favelas in Brazil, but the favelas in the United States. Me and you were talking about it before. It's kind of like the diaspora You know, it's the African diaspora. If you look at, like Finfo and the guys like that, like they look like us. African American, just the diaspora. They just were dropped off in Brazil as opposed to the United States,
Yeah.
and I fucks with that connection. And I'm willing to help as much as I can so we can like bankroll and bring guys up. Do you like help bring people here, right? Like you try.
I mean, yeah. So
Babysit,
like,
I guess. I don't know what the proper term is.
no, like officially, I brought one person. So we brought.
Don't snitch on yourself now. I'm not Vlad or Adam 22.
No, I say officially because I've also gotten a call when I mentioned Eduardo Hawkey when I met him when he was a small child, and I get a call like, "Oh, I'm gonna compete in DC Open," and they're like, "Oh, really cool! Like that's awesome. Where are you staying?" Like with you.
Oh shit.
Like, oh, what? Like, so that stuff comes. So like, he's stayed with me for a little while. Like he came to like DC Open and stayed with me for 2 weeks. And then he's often in Florida because his coach from Gordo, he keeps him in Florida when he's in the U.S., but he travels all around. So then last year for Worlds, we were able to fundraise and bring Jonathan Marquez over. So that was a big deal for us because Jonathan, or we call him Moicano, which means Mohawk, he was part of AOJ. He's one of Terere's students, like a little prodigy. Like he's been beating up on all of us since he was 13 years old. Like many of an adult and I have sat plotting against him when he was still a yellow belt. But like he's known for being AOJ because like he comes from the favela. He had that opportunity to come to the U.S., compete for a big name. So he competed for them. And now he also competes for Dream Art, but like coming to Worlds last year was the first time he was able to do a major competition and compete under Fernando Terere. So that means a lot for us. So not only did he go to California, but I brought him out here to Washington, D.C. To stay with me and train at Team Lloyd Irvin for a week. And then I took him up to New York because he's got a lot of people that know him in New York that some supporters that had gone out. Well, the first time he went to Pan Kids, they flew all the way out from New York to go support him. So he got to go and like teach some classes. Actually, he taught his first little mini seminars in New York, which was really cool.
Awesome. So my last question for you is, what is the ultimate goal for Favela Jiu-Jitsu, and how can the listeners and anyone that watches or listens to this podcast help you in that goal?
I guess my goal is to make the idea a little bit more sustainable. That's what I've always said with like Terere Kids Project is like I want them to be able to function when I'm not there and when Terere isn't there, to help them out, to make sure that they have sponsors and to make sure that they have everything they need. So like the same thing with Favela Jiu-Jitsu, there's like a few big media companies, you have Flow Grappling, you have Gracie Mag, but I want there to always be a presence that is focused on, those voiceless people, those like the community, and I don't want it just to be like when I'm done, like nobody cares about those people, like, so hopefully it will like branch out from a company to have other writers and more people involved and not just me.
Excellent. That's great, man. Well, what is the website? There's
FavelaJiu-JITSU.com, and now we have a new clothing line that like we don't
show
do a
the
lot
camera.
of clothes.
You gotta
Okay, we
flex
gotta
to the
like
camera.
check it out. Show the camera. Okay, so like after people stopped like giving me money on Facebook, then I started selling some shirts, like different campaign shirts. So every time I'm fundraising for like a major competition, like we'll drop a new shirt. So like I've had like the first one said "Survival of the Fittest," which comes from Darwinism, inspired by people like Alan Finfo and Jackson Souza. The other one said "Projects for Life," which is social projects that support life. So Projects for Life, also, because the projects are what we call like the favelas in the U.S. And then this is in Portuguese. So what it says in Portuguese comes from the national anthem. It's really popular among fighters. It says, "You'll see that a child of yours will never run from war." So this drop is going to support like the kids from Terere Kids Project that are going to Brazilian Nationals. I've also promised three ladies in Brazil that I would pay for all of their IBJJF competitions this year.
Sheesh. Nico, I gotta hand it to you. Like, you're doing God's work. Like, you're really out there in the trenches. You know, I appreciate you doing that for the jiu-jitsu community and the diaspora. And yeah, I look forward to working with you guys and helping as much as I can. Wow. Well, thanks for coming into the BJJ Goons dojo. You can hit me up at Tim Spriggs BJJ on Instagram and Facebook. You can also go to Tim Spriggs BJJ to book a seminar, private lesson, or have me do a super fight at your event. Tony, anything to add?
Nah, man, great show. Good listen.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, everyone. We will be back very soon for another regular episode. But thanks again, Nico Ball. No new Nico. Sandman's illegitimate daughter.
Oh, great nickname. All right, make sure you follow us on Favela Jiu-Jitsu. Check out favelajujitsu.com, and we have interviews and highlights on our YouTube channel.
Oh, yeah, and a little pause for the cause. Make sure you go to vhtsny.com for all the best Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, combat sports, and streetwear. Use promo code MUSHMASTER for 10% off. On behalf of the BJJ Goons, stay safe, though. Peace out. Goon life.
Us.
Us.